Good evening, members. Please be seated. Right, good evening, members and officers of the Council and members of the press and public. I welcome you to this meeting of the Council. Fire evacuation procedures. If the fire alarm is activated, please vacate the building via the emergency exits. Now, filming of the meeting. I would advise that if filming takes place, anyone in attendance in the public areas may have their image captured. I urge anyone filming proceedings to avoid filming members of the public, particularly if there are children present. There aren't generally children present. Does anyone intend to film the meeting? I don't see anybody indicating. What was That's all right, Councillor Orban. Calm down. Any filming or recording will not be permitted for any item of business where exempt or confidential information is considered following the exclusion of the press and public from the meeting. Would everyone present please ensure that their mobile phones are turned to silent and that they are not used to make or receive phone calls whilst this meeting is in progress. I do have to go through all of these every meeting because though you've all heard it before, it nevertheless is important for safety reasons. Now then, I shall move on to apologies for absence. I have had apologies received from Councillors Hart, Potts and Paul Moore. Are there any other apologies this evening? Yes, Councillor Curry.
Apologies from Councillor Mark Hopkinson.
Any other apologies? I don't see anyone. Agenda item 2, minutes of the previous meetings. It's a bit unusual this time. I call upon Councillor Everett, who would like to propose an amendment to the minutes of the last meeting. Councillor Everett.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just going to move the amendment and rather than elaborate on it, because I think it's quite self-evident what I'm saying. In respect to the penultimate paragraph of item 7A, delete the words all the and insert but Thanet District Council is the responsible body, so district. And the point is that I was asking for district councillors to be involved, not town councillors. Thank you.
Fine. Do you have a seconder for that? I'll second that. Councillor Orban. I'm sure it's not controversial. Is that agreed? Agreed. It's agreed. Thank you very much indeed. Agenda item 3, announcements. Now, it is regret that I have to announce that former councillors Paul Brownlee has recently passed away. Mr. Brownlee was an independent councillor from 1987 to 1995 for North Down Park Ward. In addition, it is with regret that I must also announce that former councillor Mary Dwyer-King has also recently passed away. Mrs. Dwyer-King was a councillor for Central Harbour Ward from 2011 to 2015. It's unusual to lose 2 councillors so close together. I'm sure Council will join me in expressing sympathy to their families. Could all members please stand for a minute silence as a mark of respect for the late Mr. Brownlee and Mrs. Dwyer-King. Thank you very much, members. Now, I'm sure there are members here who did know these councillors. Does any member wish to have a few words? Say a few words.
Councillor Tomlinson and Councillor Scott.
Yeah. Councillor Everett.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And can I first of all thank all members and officers for the many responses to the email that I sent round about Mary. I know that her husband Barry and her children Liam and Danielle will be appreciative of them. Mary was someone that I met in the run-up to the 2011 elections, and one thing that struck me about her from the beginning was her determination. She might have only been a councillor for one term, but she was unlucky not to make it back here 3 times, losing by 17 votes in Eastcliff in 2015, 44 votes in Northwood in 2019, and just 5 in Newington last year. She'd been selected for that last by-election more than a year before it could take place, and sadly by the time it was held, she knew that she was terminally ill. But she was determined to carry on as long as she could, and that summed up her attitude to the cancer that unfortunately killed her. She was brave and she remained cheerful, which is very much the Mary that we knew over the last decade. With Councillor Huxley, Mary represented Central Harbour alongside the late Peter Campbell, who memorably put out a ward newsletter in 2011 announcing his 2 new assistants. Being Peter, of course, he got away with that, but neither of them were particularly impressed. She was very proud to be Deputy Mayor of Ramsgate, I think from 2013 to 2015, and as a member of Ramsgate Town Council, and I mean it as a compliment when I say that she was very much one of the people and always very comfortable meeting them. Although she lived in Margate when she first came to Thanet, she soon saw the light and moved to Ramsgate. She was a council tenant, and despite long-standing health issues, she had a succession of jobs, including in a taxi office, in a betting shop, and in local supermarkets. Now, we all bring different experience to the council, but I suspect that we don't have enough councillors who live their life at the sharp end financially, particularly given the levels of deprivation in parts of our community. Mary was an authentic voice for those people because she encountered the issues they faced every day, and she overcame them. She was a reliable member of the Labour group, and she was someone who faced her challenges in life with positivity and good humour. So I know that we in the local Labour Party will miss her, and that you will all join me in sending condolences to Barry and her children. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Everett. Councillor Tomlinson.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to, as I did on Councillor Everett's page regarding Mary, I do recall Mary on this council. I didn't know her that well, and I think Councillor Everett here tonight has said all that should be said about Mary, and our regards from the Conservative group to her family. If I may, Chair, Councillor Paul Brownlee was a very close friend with his wife, Vivian. In fact, I went to his funeral with my wife on Tuesday to pay respects. Paul, anybody who knew him, I mean, I wasn't a councillor in those days, but I think most people know I follow the mayor, the towns and so forth. A lovely character, fun. I know we're going out live, but just a very short story of a evening I arranged in 2010 in the town hall for a drink for past mayors. We left at about 4 o'clock in the morning, and how he got down the stairs on the banisters is another story, because there's a big ball at the bottom. But a lovely man. He's going to be lost. I had a lovely talk with his wife on Tuesday. You know, that's all I can say, just lovely memories. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed for the amusing anecdote there. Councillor Moore, did you wish to...
Rick has already said most of it, but he missed out the fact that she was a very good photographer, and nobody knew this. I've seen her photographs, and she was always good for a laugh, and she was a very sociable person and very kind. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Scobie.
Thank you. Yes, I met Mary back in the mid 2005, something like that. when she lived in Cliftonville, and she joined the Labour Party and came along to our meetings, and she was quite a rough diamond, but a heart of gold. And I was really quite sad when she moved to Ramsgate and then became a Ramsgate councillor. But Cliftonville's loss was Ramsgate's gain. I also worked with Paul Brownlee for many years at Laleham Gap School. He was on the care staff at first and later moved over to site management. He and his family were lovely and always very, very supportive of the school. And the occasion I remember well was when Paul became Mayor of Margate. I had to drive the minibus with loads of children down to the Winter Gardens to see him being invested. Is that the correct phrase? Yep, that'll do. What a charming bloke. He and his wife looked after a severely disabled son for many years, and I've only just heard about his death tonight, but I will be in contact with Viv in a short time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Scobie. Councillor Piper.
Thank you very much, Chair. As someone who I didn't know Paul, and Mary I didn't know that well. I did meet her a few times, as I recorded for Councillor Everett in my response to his email, and I would have to say that despite the fact that she was clearly very ill on the election campaign trail, she was very, very enthusiastic, and my words to him were, I found her both charming and very pleasant. She was a lovely woman, although we were combatants, if you like, at the polling offices and so on. She was such a lovely woman with great enthusiasm. So although we had different political ideologies, I found her a very nice person to get to know just a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Piper. Well, the loss of two characterful councillors, and we'll miss them. Thank you very much indeed, members. Agenda item 4, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest this evening? I don't see any indicated. Agenda item 5, petitions. No new petitions have been received in accordance with Council Procedure Rule 12. Agenda item 5A, report back to Council, the Thanet lifts petition. Now this is for information only. Would members please note the Cabinet response to the petitions as detailed in the report. Yeah, I do have Councillor Alban, you'd like to come in.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Whilst I understand what you're saying, it's just for report. I just would like to clarify a point in relation to the last council meeting regarding the budget and the amendment that I made at that council meeting in relation to the lifts. Towards the end of the debate on that, Chair, the leader stood up and made reference to her meeting two councillors in relation to possibly Ramsgate Town Council being able to take over the lift. If I can just put that into context, Chair, because I think it's important. The context of it was that it was at Ramsgate's 200th anniversary with a lot of dignitaries, etc., and we're all standing there waiting for parade, etc., etc. And Councillor Ashby came to me, asked if she could have a quick word, which obviously, as I know well, we did. And she asked me if she got some money towards the lift, would Ramsgate Councillor
Alban, I think we're going into a level of detail here that's not directly relevant to discussing the lifts themselves.
Chairman, this is in relation to a petition in relation to the lifts, Chair. I just wanted to make it clear.
Well, if you could just finish quickly, Councillor Alban, because it's not directly
all I
on the
want to
subject.
say, Chair, is that it was a purely a passing comment, not to do with Ramsgate Town Council. And what I wanted to say, Chair, as well, is that I'm inviting the leader of the council to come along to Ramsgate Town Council, or to go through a formal process in relation to the lift transferring to Ramsgate Town Council, if at all possible. Chair.
All right. Okay. Well, look, thank you very much indeed for that, and I'm sure the leader has noted that. I'm sure the leader would have been open at any time for you contacting her. Yeah, leader, would you like to come in there?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, thank you, Councillor Orban. I didn't want to make reference at the time to the councillor because it was an informal discussion. I'm absolutely delighted that it may be considered at Ramsgate Town Council. I'm more than willing to come along to your invitation, and I'm sure we can have a sensible discussion and move things forward to a positive outcome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much indeed, leader, for that, and I'm sure it'll be very welcome. Agenda item 6, questions from the press and public. 2 questions have been received, members of the public, in accordance with Council Procedure Rule 13. Please note that only the questioner and respondent are permitted to speak on the question. Could the questioner please state the name of the Cabinet member to whom the question is to be put and read out the exact wording of the question they are submitting to the Council. Therefore, agenda item 6A, question number 1 from a member of the public regarding the Old Town Hall and Mayor's Parlour. Now, unfortunately, the questioner is unable to attend this meeting, so in accordance with the Council Procedure Rule 13.6, the question will be responded to in writing. Taking us straight into agenda item 6B, a number 2 from a member of the public regarding catering in Westbrook Bay. I'm pleased to welcome Miss Yorath to the meeting. Could you please make your way forward, Miss Yorath?
Good evening. The cafe in the Westbrook Bay Loggia building ceased trading about 2 years ago, leaving the popular family beach without a catering service, even in the busy summer of 2020. So last summer, we celebrated when a small converted horsebox arrived offering limited food, drinks and beach goods. However, our joy turned to horror when a noisy generator was used to power the horsebox. This meant that those of us in the adjacent beach huts could not enjoy our quiet, much-needed relaxing time. Would the Council please tell us what plans have been made to provide the essential catering in Westbrook Bay from the beginning of the season in April? And this summer, will the Council allow the catering facility to use the mains in the building, which are very accessible, I hear, so that the enjoyment of those utilising our beautiful and tranquil beach is not destroyed by a noisy generator for yet another season?
Thank you very much, Miss Yorath. I call upon Councillor Pugh to respond.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your question. The food and beverage concession from last season was a temporary licence which has since ended, and we are in the process of looking at coastal licences, and this area of the prom will form part of the larger exercise. Where a generator is absolutely necessary, alternative all-electric or hybrid power generators should be considered, in line with our corporate statement for environment. And unfortunately, access to the Loggia building for power supply is not permitted for health and safety reasons. And I think it's important to add, Mr. Sheriff, that we're currently evaluating and looking at the future of the Westbrook Loggia building, and we hope to be able to present our findings very soon. So hopefully we can ensure that there are the facilities there at Westbrook Beach that all residents know and love and can enjoy. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Pugh. Agenda item 7, moving on to questions from members of the Council. 7 questions in all have been received from members of the Council. Please note that the time allowed for consideration of the questions from members shall not exceed 30 minutes. I ask members to be succinct as possible. So straight in to agenda item 7A, question number 1 from a member regarding Kent County Council's Household Waste and Recycling Centre consultation. I call upon Councillor Crittenden.
Thank you. I note from the outcome report of KCC's Household Waste and Recycling Centre consultation carried out during August and September last year that unlike Labour-led Swale Council, Thanet District Council did not respond to the invitation to contribute to the consultation. Given the shocking rise in fly tipping back in early 2020 when the waste and recycling centres were closed because of the pandemic, I would have expected the Council to have publicly shown more interest in this consultation by responding. Can you please advise why TDC did not respond to the consultation? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crittenham. Councillor Bayford, turning to you for a response.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Crittenham, for your question. The Household Waste and Recycling Centre consultation in August and September 2021 sought customers' views on the future use of a booking system at the HWRCs. The booking system was introduced in May 2020 as a method of managing the number of visits to facilitate social distancing during the pandemic. TDC officers have communicated regularly with KCC on this subject, but that's via the Kent Resource Partnership, of which both TDC and KCC are members, along with all the other Kent District authorities. Communication through this group is likely to be the reason why only one of 12 district councils in Kent responded to the consultation. It is worth mentioning that the initial limit on frequency of visits by any one customer was removed in December 2020, thereby significantly mitigating concerns around increased fly tipping risk. Furthermore, since its introduction in 2020, the booking system has reduced instances of traffic queuing outside the HWRC at Margate. This reduces the risk to users and offers a benefit to the council as the centre shares a common access with the council's waste and recycling depot at Manston. I'm pleased to say I believe at the moment KCC are presently introducing an on-the-day booking system, so there should be no delays. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Bayford. Councillor Crittenden, do you have a follow-up question?
As it happens, no. Thank you.
Ah, most unusual. Councillor Bayford, quite pleased about that, are you? Opportunity missed, quite clearly. Agenda item 7B. Question number 2 from a member regarding recycling in Cliftonville West. I call upon Councillor Curry.
Thank you, Chair. My question is again to Councillor Bayford. We did have a brief chat about this on Monday, but I won't stray from the question. With regard to the big increase in household waste being generated over the last couple of years, recycling within our communities has never been more important than at this time. In my ward, Cliftonville West, there is a much higher than average proportion of HMOs and households where recycling collection is not possible due to a lack of bin storage areas. Large communal waste bins provided for these households are constantly overflowing, and probably half of the contents could be recycled. Unlike the nearby wards in Dane Valley and Cliftonville East, there is no designated council recycling area where residents can easily walk to and dispose of their glass and plastic bottles. Would the Cabinet member liaise with the relevant officers and the ward councillors to identify a suitable site in Cliftonville West where sealed recycling containers could be situated?
Thank you, Councillor Curry. Back to you, Councillor Bayford.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Curry, for your question. A total of 15 static collection sites are listed for recycling on the Council's website. One of these is at Dalby Square, which is within Cliftonville West Ward, and offers recycling of glass jars and bottles. Other sites just outside the ward include Dane Crescent Road and Palm Bay Car Park, the latter of which also offers paper and cardboard recycling. The neighbourhood recycling scheme also remains available in a large number of roads in Cliftonville West for residents who wish to opt in and receive mixed dry recycling and paper and card curbside collections. Residents who are interested in joining the scheme can do so via the Waste and Recycling page on the Council's website. For larger residential buildings containing flats where the neighbourhood recycling scheme is not available, the Council is always prepared to discuss the introduction of recycling collections, provided there is space for bin storage. Unfortunately, fly tipping and antisocial behaviour led to the Harold Road recycling site in Cliftonville West being removed in 2014. The Council is committed to diverting recyclable waste away from the residual non-recyclable waste stream, but this must be in a manner that is sustainable in terms of both staffing resources and budget. But the short answer to your question is yes, I will liaise with officers and we'll see what we can do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bayford. Councillor Curry, that sounded encouraging. Do you have a follow-up question?
Yes, thanks, Chair. Not so much a question, but more clarification. Myself, Councillor Keane and Councillor Scobie, we've spoken to residents, and what we're thinking of is not one of these open areas that can be fly tipped, but more the sealed containers. In Dane Park, there's 3 sealed containers, less likely to be contaminated or misused. And there are a couple of sites that we think could work. And would it be possible to arrange a site visit, maybe with 1 or 2 of the officers, just to look at these sites and discuss things? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Curry. Councillor Bayford, help with your portfolio there.
I'm sure we can arrange that, but perhaps in the short term you could send me an email listing the sites and we'll take it on from there. But, you know, hear what you say.
Thank you very much. Agenda item 7C, question number 3 from a member regarding a response provided at the council meeting on the 12th of January 2022. I call upon Councillor Everett.
Thank you, Chair. At the full council meeting on January the 12th, I asked the leader to share her correspondence with the Secretary of State with responsibility for local government about the council's governance, to avoid the need for me to use the Freedom of Information Act to obtain it. She refused to do so, claiming the correspondence was personal and private. This was never a realistic claim, and she was subsequently forced to disclose it. She also insisted that she'd never asked the Secretary of State to rectify the situation, explicitly stating that she'd never used those words, despite them appearing in the local media from her own public statement at the time, and in her email to Michael Gove MP on September the 15th. I'm sure she agrees with me that political leaders must always tell the truth. Will she therefore now apologise for misleading the council at the January meeting?
Thank you, Councillor Everett. I call upon the leader, who I'm sure is going to be able to clarify in full.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Everett, for your question. I would like to state that at no time, either in the January council meeting or any other time, has it been my intention to mislead members of this council. I totally agree that political leaders, and I would like to think that should also include elected members, must always tell the truth. However, I would like to comment that I believe, Councillor Everett, you abused your privilege as Shadow Group Leader when under the Constitution allows you and the other opposition group leaders to comment, but only on the contents of the report. In this case, Councillor Everett, you referred to my correspondence with the Secretary of State, which had not in any way been mentioned in my report. And you went on to ask me to confirm certain details of what I had written, knowing that I had no way to check back on the facts at that time. I would have been well within my rights to refuse to answer, but as a matter of courtesy, I agreed to respond, which now seems to have been a mistake. As Councillor Everett, you expected me on that night in January to remember verbatim what I had written on 3 separate communications 5 months earlier. For clarity, the words in question are rectify versus regularise, which even with my limited knowledge of written English have similar meanings, and perhaps this could be a matter of semantics. Maybe, Councillor Everett, you might like to consider apologising to the members of this council and the 142,000 residents of Thanet for taking very little action during your 20 months as leader of this council and not attempting to try and put right the governance of this council and the dysfunctionality of the senior management team. It seems that if you had channeled the same amount of passion and effort you have shown in trying to discredit me by filing a standards complaint against me and now bringing this question to council, you might be standing where I am standing today.
Thank you very much indeed, Leader. Councillor Everett, back to you for a supplementary.
Well, there's a great deal of untrue things in there, including the words that rectify the situation was qualified in her email, which it isn't. So I don't know what she's talking about. Quite honestly, Chair, it's for you to decide whether what I say is in order or not in order, and you didn't rule it out of order, so I don't think Councillor Ashby's entitled to rule it out of order now. She knows that when she wrote to the Secretary of State, the Secretary of State replied that the processes were already in place to deal with these issues. She asked the Secretary of State for support and assistance up to and including special...
Councillor Everett, I require a supplementary question.
There is a supplementary question. There is a supplementary question. She knows that those procedures were put in place under the Labour administration and that was done on a cross-party basis. I collaborated...
Councillor Everett, a question, please.
I collaborated with the former leader. Well, I've been attacked. I think I'm entitled to reply.
No, this is a supplementary question, Councillor Everett.
I want to know, what did Councillor Ashby's correspondence with the Secretary of State achieve? And will she still be taking advice from Sir Roger Gale MP in the future about how to conduct this council's affairs?
And that is the question. But I have to say, Councillor Everett, and you do know better, this is a supplementary question opportunity, not a statement, in order to try and vindicate whatever is the case at stake here. But back to you, Leader.
Thank you, Chair. Well, what I will say it achieved is that I actually managed to get the government to understand that I believe that we had problems here before we got served a Section 24 notice. So I couldn't have got it all that wrong. I would like to say, and I'm going to come back on something that isn't relevant to Councillor Everett's response, because he didn't come back which was relevant to my response. So in Councillor Everett's 150-word question, the word she was used 7 times and her 3 times. I can confirm that my preferred gender pronouns are she and her, but I feel that this might have been a little excessive use. I much prefer the noun leader or Councillor Ashby. Thank you, Chair.
Well, there is the clarification. A little heated, but I do hope we can resolve that and move on now. Agenda item 7D, question number 4 from a member regarding housing targets and the local plan. I call upon Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. This is addressed to the Leader. It is widely acknowledged, including by North Thanet MP Sir Roger Gale, who's very popular today, that our house building targets are based on inadequate and incorrect ONS data. They do not reflect Thanet's needs. At the same time, actual delivery is failing to offer the very minimum requirement of 30% affordable housing. Yet Thanet's beautiful towns and villages are being irrevocably damaged, while swathes of irreplaceable Grade 1 agricultural land are being lost. Will the Leader consider following the example of Mid-Sussex District Council in halting the current local plan review process and writing to the Secretary of State, again, to ask him to revise these false housing targets?
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Smith. I call upon the Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Smith, for your question. I believe the reference to ONS data refers to the use of the 2014 data household projections. The government's standard method for assessing housing needs for local areas through the local plan process is set out in government guidance. That guidance is clear that local councils should use the 2014 based household projections as the basis for that calculation. The guidance says that the 2014 based household projections are used to ensure the historic under-delivery and declining affordability are reflected, and to be consistent with the government's objective of significantly boosting the supply of homes. The standard method also includes an adjustment to recognise differing affordability issues in different areas. It is understood that the government is currently reviewing the current standard method for calculating housing needs, and that this may change in the near future. If this is the case, this can be addressed during the local plan process. Yes, I can confirm I will be communicating with the Secretary of State on the subject of housing matters and the housing delivery test in particular, and it will hopefully be a lot stronger than just a letter, but I can give you more news on that at a later date. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you very much indeed, Leader. I'm coming back to you, Councillor Smith, in case you've got a supplementary, but because of a little bit of confusion earlier, what I'd like to say and remind all councillors, the supplementary needs to be a question and it needs to be directly related to the original question. Councillor Smith, have you got a supplementary?
No, I think I will wait. I will wait to hear from the leader.
You will wait. Well, okay. I hope I didn't put you off. Agenda item 7E, a question number 5 from a member regarding emergency housing provision for people with pets. I call upon Councillor Wing.
Thank you, Chair. The charity Street Paws states that the bond between a homeless person and their animal is profound. Their animal is their whole world, gives them a reason to carry on, and is often the only source of unconditional love. The health benefits of pet ownership are immense, both mentally and physically, but many rough sleepers are asked to give up their dogs to access services and support. The Big Issue and Dogs Trust report that research from Nottingham University has found that pet ownership among homeless people is linked to a range of benefits, including alleviating loneliness, isolation, depression, substance misuse and criminality. Clearly, there is well-evidenced benefits to pet dog ownership, so will the Cabinet member seek to ensure our homeless with pets, most commonly dogs, are offered equal access to both emergency and permanent housing as soon as possible? Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Wing. Of course, I imagine some pets could be problematic. That's not dogs, of course. Coming to you, Councillor Bayford. Councillor Jill Bayford.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Wing, for the question. This issue was discussed in some length at the last Housing Cabinet Advisory Group. We fully recognise the value of pets, particularly dogs, to people facing homelessness or other traumas in their life, and seek to support this wherever possible. Our Rough Sleeping Services, RISE, does have access to a number of emergency accommodation placements where it is possible for people to take their dogs with them. We can also assist clients in finding other temporary arrangements for their dogs to enable clients to take up emergency accommodation whilst waiting for a more permanent home. Our statutory homelessness services also have access to some temporary accommodation where dogs are permitted. Clearly, in hostel settings or accommodation with any shared spaces, we also need to consider the potential increased costs and risks associated with allowing any significant number of dogs onto a project at the same time. Many dogs are well behaved, but not all, and these risks have to be managed for the safety of other residents and staff. It is definitely more difficult for our services to secure more move-on accommodation for people with dogs, as many landlords, but not all, will not permit pets. There may also be an additional charge for allowing dogs, which clients may not be able to afford. Tenancy agreements for the council's own permanent housing stock do allow pets, including dogs, to be kept with consent. Consent would be on the basis that pets are well cared for and do not pose a risk or cause a nuisance to other residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bayford. Councillor Wing, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, please. I'm very concerned at this time of year because I've been involved with a number of homeless people who, and some of whom are still sleeping rough in their cars with their pets. Will
Councillor Wing, have you got a question?
Yes. Will Councillor Bayford try and ask the RISE team to give an estimate of the number of people we presently have in their cars in these terrible conditions with pets?
Thank you, Councillor Wing. Councillor Bayford.
Thank you, Councillor Wing. Yes, indeed, I can. So you want to know the number of cars, numbers of residents,
homeless people with animals sleeping rough at the moment.
I will make that inquiry for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bayford. Agenda item 7F, question number 6 from a member regarding the Viking Bay lift in Broadstairs. I call upon Councillor Bailey. Councillor Bailey.
Sorry. Good evening. At the last Budget Council meeting, is my mic on? There was a proposed amendment to allocate part of the unexpected new homes bonus money to fund the repairs of the Broadstairs and Ramsgate lifts. In response to that proposed amendment, the leader said that extensive and ongoing conversations had been held with Broadstairs Town Council in regard to them taking on the Viking Bay lift. Well, I am a Broadstairs and St Peter's Town Councillor, and I sit on most of the Town Council committees, and I haven't heard nothing about this. And in fact, I now know that there have been no such formal discussions. Also revealed at that meeting was the estimated cost of repairing the Viking Bay lift being in the region of, I'm not sure if it was 113 or £130,000, but can the leader tell me if she does donate the £50,000 compensation from Southern Water, where the difference is going to come from if there is no allocation for it in the TDC budget? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. I call upon the leader to respond.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Bailey, for your question. I did say there had been extensive and ongoing conversations, but they were informal. I didn't add that word, and I apologise for that. I have spoken. Formal or informal is rather, in this particular
Can we calm down, Councillor?
Is rather irrelevant to actually getting things done. I mean, you have to start the process off with an informal conversation, which I have done with 3 of the Broadstairs Town councillors, which actually sit on my cabinet. The additional Ramsgate Town councillor that I spoke to was actually Councillor Binks, and I met with Councillor Binks, who is on Broadstairs, is the chair of Finance and General Purposes on Broadstairs Town Council, and she's also a KCC councillor. And I met with her not just to discuss Broadstairs lift, but a variety of topics. The purpose of the conversation was to try and find a long-term and sustainable solution to keeping the lift open and running on a secure financial and maintainable basis. My offer to Broadstairs Town Council is, like Councillor Orban mentioned earlier, we had an informal conversation there, was that Broadstairs Town Council to take the lift as a Broadstairs Town Council asset, and I would include the £50,000 donation only to be used in connection with the lift. It is for Broadstairs Town councillors to decide if they wish to proceed and let me know accordingly. It is not my business to make that decision for Broadstairs Town Council. It is totally a decision for that council to make, and if they decide not to proceed with my offer, then I will reallocate the £50,000 to another community cause within the district. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Leader. Before I turn to you for a supplementary, Councillor Bailey, just to remind councillors all again, it's a question, not statement, it's a question, a supplementary question. Councillor Bailey.
Oh, there's so much to answer there. Try and encapsulate it. If Broadstairs Town Council do not take on the lift, I mean, you haven't actually answered my question, I'm sorry. The question was, if £50,000 is allocated to lift, whether it's under the guise of TDC or under the guise of Broadstairs Town Council, there is still a shortfall between the 50,000 and the 113,000 that the report says is needed to repair the lift.
Councillor Bailey, please, a question.
Well, I would like my question answered. Where's the shortfall going to come from? Thank you.
Leader, are you ready to respond?
Yes, Chair. The fact of the matter is, Broadstairs lift will open at Easter, and as long as nothing goes wrong with the lift, then it will continue to work under the assets of Thanet District Council. But, and this is the but, if the lift was to go wrong at any time after that it was opened, there is no recourse to Thanet District Council. There are no funds to actually amend it to get it back online. So I am trying to find a solution, a long-term solution for this lift. And quite frankly, you know, if the council are of a mind to take it on, there will be other ways of raising the additional money. You do not need to spend today any money on the lift to have it working. It actually is run all through the winter just for maintenance purposes to make sure that it stays, the mechanics stay working. So although it's difficult for me, what I'm trying to do is to find a long-term future for Broadstairs lift. But what we can't do as a district council, we do not have the budget to keep fixing the lift time and time again. We need to get it to a sustainable position, we need to spend that sort of money on it. It is around 87, 90, it depends on which part of the actual mechanics that you want to actually, the maintenance part you want to do. I have got the full reports that have been supplied by the officers. Those reports have now been sent to Councillor Binks because she was the one that initiated the conversation. So I'm sure that she will bring it to Broadstairs Town Council where you can all decide whether you want to take the lift or not and weigh up the risks of not taking it versus the risk with taking it. It's not my decision. I'm just making an offer to give Broadstairs Town Council the lift and a donation to go with it for £50,000. So I hope that clarifies for you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. I missed all of that. I'm missing some amusing anecdote. Right, okay, let's carry on. Agenda item 7G. Leader, did I miss something amusing? What happened? Right. Agenda item 7G. Question number 7 from a member regarding the goods yard in All Saints Avenue, Margate. I call upon Councillor Farron.
Thank you, Chair. Regarding the local plan, the council, I believe, has been instructed to conduct another search for brownfield sites. I believe there's a suitable brownfield site in my ward at the old goods yard off All Saints Avenue. At 3.2 hectares, it could accommodate about 130 units of housing. It's surrounded on 2 sides by residential housing, and it's close to the seafront and the town centre. Now, although this was allocated for commercial development, times have changed, and we are now desperate to find brownfield sites and save our precious green spaces and fields. At the same time, I believe we have at least 30 hectares of commercial development in progress at what was called the China Gateway area. So, along with other commercial units planned at Westwood, why is all this together not enough for Thanet's commercial needs? That's my first part of my question. And my second part is, has the council in any way consulted with the owners of the All Saints site to ask them to consider what would surely be a popular housing development instead of commercial? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Farron. I call upon the leader to respond.
I feel a bit like a lift tonight, Chair. I'm up and down, up and down, up and down.
Councillor Farron, can you turn your microphone off?
This is the Ramsgate one, and this is the...
Councillor Farron. Councillor Farron, can you turn your microphone off? Thank you.
Decision about the allocation sites for housing or for other purposes are taken through the local plan process. These decisions have to be based on thorough site assessments which look at the range of planning issues and are subject to consultation with other statutory bodies and sustainability appraisals, as required by the government guidance. This also includes consultation with landowners wherever possible to ensure that the sites selected are genuinely available for development. It is also important to ensure there is a suitable mix of commercial land and buildings available to support the local economy, and this site is currently protected in the local plan. It is the intention that all these matters will be addressed through the local plan process in due course, and that recommendations on a set of suitable sites will be presented to members for decision. It would not be appropriate to prejudge that process. This site actually is quite familiar to me because I actually went and had a look at it about 6 months ago. It was divided into 3 sections. It has been sold quite recently, and the intention is for it to continue, the owners to continue to put units on there. So I think you'll find that they wouldn't be open to having the conversation. I don't believe that the conversation has taken place regarding residential, but as we know, as it's already in the local plan as commercial development, it would be very unlikely that it would be turned to residential use. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leader. Councillor Fanuc, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, please. My question was, one of my questions was about consulting with the owners because of All Saints site, because that's, to me, it seems that we have our local plan with thousands and thousands of houses earmarked.
Councillor Fanuc, you're making a statement. Can I have a
Yes.
question, please?
I'm just getting there, with thousands of houses to be built on fields, and therefore we are more...
No, Councillor Fanuc, no, look, I've had to emphasise this all night. You have to have a question. Could I have that question, please?
My question is, as it was originally, what's happening about council officers or councillors speaking to the owners of possible brownfield sites for housing now that things have changed? I appreciate what Councillor Ashby has said, and I understand that, but
No, Councillor Fanuc, you're making statement and you're talking over. We have to have a question because it can only be answered. A question can only be answered, not a response to a statement.
Consulted with the owners of All Saints site. If they haven't, why haven't they? And also,
Right, well, that's your question. That's therefore, could you please sit down, Councillor Fanuc? That was your question. Thank you. No, there's no second question. There is a supplementary, and that is it. Could you please sit down? Thank you very much. Leader, I did find that very confused. If you found it confusing, I'd leave it to you whether or not you decide to answer.
All I can do is confirm the process. This council puts out a call for sites. We cannot approach every single landowner in this district to answer if they would rather sell their land for residential development as opposed to commercial. That is not the process. The process is we call for sites, the sites come in. We cannot approach, as I say, and to my knowledge, no, we haven't approached them. I do believe that they are actually Russian owned, so right at this moment it probably wouldn't actually be a very good idea to approach them for that particular site. But in answer to your first question, no, I do not believe that we have approached the Russian owners whether they would consider having it as a residential site. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Leader. That includes our questions from the public and councillors tonight. I would just like to close by adding that the whole process can be much more useful if we stick to direct questions and direct answers. So I look forward to the next meeting in that respect. Agenda item number 8, motions on notice. No motions or notice have been received in accordance with Council Procedure Rule number 3. So I move on to agenda item 9, the Leader's Report. Now, in light of what has just happened with the questions, I'd like to emphasise that following the Leader's Report, group leaders can comment on and ask questions in relation to the Leader's Report, not otherwise. Thank you. Leader.
Could I go and have a quick lie down before I give my reports, Chair? I would like to thank members for unanimously approving the 2022-23 budget at the full council on the 10th of February. Councillor Saunders had already stated that we were forecasting a significant budget gap, but cautious approach combined with an efficient savings plan and additional government funding meant we were able to present a balanced budget. By way of an update on burst 4-5 at the Port of Ramsgate, the new marine licence application was submitted to the MMO on Friday the 28th of January. The revised application will be informed by an environmental statement, which is the output of the EIA. This statement will also inform the prior approval planning application, which was submitted to the local planning authority on the 28th of January. The Council's contribution to the Interreg Experience Development Programme in partnership with Visit Kent has brought 17 new tourism experiences to the Isle of Thanet. The project aim is to increase visitor spend, improve the sustainability of tourism and to develop and implement new products and services to attract additional visitors. Local residents can also benefit from the information which is available on the Visit Thanet website. The Ramsgate Future Town Investment Plan was published on the 20th of January 2022. Being a tool for organisations to use for their own funding bids, it also provides justification to potential investors and importantly includes the priorities and projects that have been identified by the local community. The plan outlines the potential opportunities in supporting Ramsgate's future, and I strongly recommend members, if you haven't already done so, to watch the excellent explainer video. As part of the Welcome Back funding for high streets, we have partnered with Totally Locally and encourage business owners to work together in celebration of our independent high streets and to help them recover post-COVID-19. Network Rail have published updates on the Thanet Parkway station and indicated that construction of the new station is on schedule with passenger services due to be introduced in May 2023. Margate Towndale is holding a community pop-up exhibition at Turner Contemporary this Saturday to give an opportunity for local people to find out more about the projects that make up the Margate Towndale and speak to the project team. Local people will be able to help shape the projects and inform the business cases with their ideas and feedback. The Garden Gate project's application to plant tree saplings in North Dam Park has now been approved and is going ahead. We are developing a biodiversity strategy for the whole district, which will include the protocols for gaining permission for projects on council lands, so community groups can fully understand and are aware of our expectations. This year, Great British Spring Clean is running from the 25th of March to the 10th of April 22. Once again, the council is supporting the local groups who wish to take part. We have a great deal of appreciation for the work of all the volunteers who are getting involved to help keep our district and its coastline beautiful and litter-free. On Friday the 18th of February, we activated our severe weather emergency protocol due to Storm Eunice. As always, officers from the Rise Rough Sleeping outreach team worked hard to ensure that any known rough sleepers were proactively offered relief during the period of adverse weather. Quentin Baker, the Independent Monitoring Officer, attended the General Purpose Committee meeting on the 26th of January to provide an update on his progress. All members should have received a summary, which is also available on the website. And to end on a happy note, as you know, later this year we will celebrate the Queen's Platinum Jubilee while enjoying a 4-day bank holiday with an extensive programme of public events. The traditional May bank holiday weekend has been moved to Thursday the 2nd of June with an additional bank holiday on Friday the 3rd of June to create a 4-day weekend. We have launched a new system called Event App where organisers can register any public event that they are planning. Councillor George Cupp has agreed to waive the fee for organising street parties throughout this special 4-day bank holiday so residents can focus on bringing their local communities together.
Thank you very much indeed, La. I don't know whether that's the leader's big moment or Councillor Cupp's big moment.
He's going to answer all my questions, John.
Right, I call upon Councillor Everett to comment on or ask questions directly in relation to the leader's report.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to thank the leader for the leader's report. Seriously, I take on board the point that Councillor Ashby made about pronouns. It hadn't occurred to me. Certainly wasn't done deliberately, and I'm always willing to learn about language. I'm always interested in language, as you probably know. I think, Leader, that you have to expect that if you say and do contentious things, then from our point of view, then you're going to be challenged. But we've always dealt with each other in a courteous and constructive way, and I'm sure that will continue. It certainly will from this side. I do think it's good that we were able to vote unanimously for the budget. It obviously was disappointing to us that members opposite wouldn't support our proposals on the lift and more in-house temporary accommodation for those who become homeless. You say you want the same thing. We'll judge you on the results, not the rhetoric, because neither issue is going away, as we've heard tonight on the subject of the lifts. This budget was a first for me because in 11 years as a councillor here and elsewhere, Amazingly, it's the first time I've ever had to vote on a Conservative budget. But one thing I can assure the leader about is that whoever is in the driving seat, there is always a budget gap at the start of the process, and it's always closed at the end, because it has to be. That's the process. Budgets are best judged with hindsight, though. Given the sharply rising cost of living and the pressure on wages at the moment, we will have to see how robust the assumptions about costs built into this one turn out to be during 2022-23. It's not just our residents, but our own lower paid staff who will be feeling the pinch. So I do wonder if the leader is confident about those assumptions, even a fortnight later. One other area of cost which worries me is the continuing saga of Birthsborough 5. There are many reasons why this issue remains to be resolved 3 years into this council, and I'm not blaming the leader for them. But we have to be mindful that each month that passes is imposing additional financial costs on the council and environmental costs on the community through the need for Bretts to import aggregate by road instead of sea. More delays mean more such costs, which ultimately limit our ability to do other things that our residents want. We don't want those lorries trundling in and out of Ramsgate for any longer than necessary. And regardless, it seems to me that we will struggle to contain the costs within the existing budget. I welcome the launch of the Ramsgate Town Investment Plan and the opportunity for further engagement around the Margate Town deal. It's in all our interest that these initiatives are successful, and the key to that is the involvement of the community to ensure that they have a sense of ownership and understanding of what is happening. Thanet is much more than its 3 towns, even though we talk a lot about the towns, but their increased prosperity can only be good for more rural residents too. Thanet Parkway will benefit those people, and it will make the various villages a more attractive place to live too. Signalling improvements should mean shorter overall journey times from the towns, despite the extra stop. I've been impressed by the input so far from the Independent Monitoring Officer, Quentin Baker. I think we'll wait and see what he says about what the Labour administration did, because he's objective, and I'm quite confident that will be satisfactory. We do seem to have got off relatively lightly from Storm Eunice last week, but I know there have been multiple issues to deal with across the district, including in our social housing. So finally, I want to thank all the staff who've been busy catching up on missed bin rounds and clearing up debris around the close line. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Everett. Back to you, Leader.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your response, Councillor Everett. Yeah, I'm very concerned about the cost of living. Just today, I learned that the gas price has yet again risen by 35% on wholesale prices because of the... And I actually was thinking earlier that I thought that we might want to just take stock, Council, to think about the people of the Ukraine that are living in a very dark hour at the moment. So I think we should remember that when we go home to our warm houses tonight, even though, or most of us will go home to a warm house tonight, even though the cost is rising very dramatically. I hope and pray that things do get sorted out there in a diplomatic manner. I don't think killing people and is a way to resolve any issues. We need to be able to try and negotiate a way out of it. But I think we have sleptwalked into this one, and it's unfortunate that we have probably funded, by way of buying our gas from the Russians, that we have actually funded their war machine. So we need to think about that. Verse 4.5, yes, I mean 6 hours prior to me taking over this council, I did learn of the £800,000 overspend planned on the budget. I can't say it was the best news that I would receive before taking over the council. In fact, I did think about getting in my car and driving in the opposite direction, but no, seriously, I hope that everything goes to plan and we can get this back on track and deliver it, because I am very concerned about the costs that we're racking up with lorries coming in. We have this conversation at our portfolio meetings, and again, it's not doing the environment any good whatsoever. So we need to keep a watching brief on that, but as you know, it's on our risk register, so we are. And finally, yes, I think it will be interesting. The IMO's output will be interesting, and I don't think we're probably going to get any mileage out of blaming who, what, or where. We just have to, take the advice and move on from there. So thank you for your response.
Thank you very much indeed, Leader. I call upon Councillor Piper to come on turn or ask questions in relation to the Leader's report.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much, Leader, for your report, which does have a good deal amount of good news in it, even though we are, of course, in very difficult times. There are times when I'd like to think that our group of votes make a real difference in this council, but the budget was one of those occasions when it didn't make any difference at all. All of us knew the responsibility of what we had to do, and we duly thanked Councillor Saunders for all the hard work that he and the team had done in bringing that about. Some clarification, please, Leader. The comments about berths 4 and 5, I may have misunderstood, but I think I read on the planning application lists this week that the prior approval planning application had now been withdrawn. If I got it wrong, I'm sorry. If I didn't, could we please clarify that? The Ramsgate Future Town Investment Plan, the Welcome Back funding and so on for high streets. Leader, I have had a request from a Ramsgate Town Councillor for the overview and scrutiny panel to consider calling these things in for us to have a look at. I haven't replied yet, but I wanted to use this forum to let that councillor know there is a reason for it. I was waiting for the film to be ready, available. When we had our meeting, we weren't able to watch it, but I'm hoping that explainer video will in fact explain to all the communities the purpose of the money, the means by which communities can apply for it. So at this point, I'm not exactly sure it would be an overview and scrutiny matter, but we will certainly look at it if it becomes one. Network Rail have indeed published the updates to their station. We in this group believe that the functioning port and a fully functioning airport are the things that will make this area in which we live truly open for business, and we look forward to the long overdue decision from the government about the development consent order. The Great Spring Clean is going to gather popularity and momentum, I'm sure, and I would just like to say on behalf of the people of Northwood, we'd like to thank the groups of very keen and enthusiastic litter pickers that we have, even though we're not on the shoreline. With regard to the severe weather emergency protocol, the teams here in Thanet do extremely well in very, very difficult circumstances, and perhaps as a council in this forum again, we could make sure that they are congratulated and thanked for all the hard work that they do. Quentin Baker has hit the ground running. He's met with all sorts of people, he was telling me yesterday, and picked up all kinds of information, and it is good to see how seriously this is all being taken. We will recover from the difficulties and begin serving the people perhaps better than they believe they've been served in recent years. The new system called Event App, it was good to read about that when published this morning, though it was rather difficult to share it around, but we managed it in the end. It's excellent news that streets can go ahead and register to have parties rather than sort of massive events, which we discussed at Ramsgate Town Council last night, massive events down at the harbour or something like that. It'd be nice to keep it far more local in streets and communities, because I also believe it will have a greater impact and bring more joy and excitement to the communities. Thank you very much for your report, Leader, and the opportunity to comment on it. I did want to stray and ask you how your golf was going, but it was not in your report, so I better not.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Piper. Were your golf balls going astray, Leader, in the wind?
I have a little story to tell about that, actually. Yeah, was that a question? First question, the application you're referring to, burst 45, yes, I noticed that. It did send a bit of a shockwave through the system, but if you look at it, the prefix is year 20. It's the old application that has to be withdrawn because the new one has gone in. So, yes, you weren't the first to ask me about that, Councillor Piper. Yes, the video, the explainer video is excellent, and it saves having to drill down through each part of the different elements of it all. The whole point of it really is an umbrella that sits over the top of all the activities that are going on, and there are many that are going on within the Ramsgate town. So, and I just think that you know, compliments should go to the team that put that together, because I don't very often get taken back by websites or web videos like that, but I thought that was really excellent piece of work. The DCO, whichever side of the fence we're sitting on, I think we all know we need a decision from this government, and whichever way it goes, we need to know so we can move on in whichever direction it is that we're going to travel. It is hamstringing us with lots of different areas, obviously the main one being how we move forward with our housing numbers. The refuse system, I think compliments should go, and I think Councillor Bayford was explaining at our group meeting earlier that he was at some very exciting waste, I forget what it was actually titled now. Kent Resource Partnership, where we appear to be one of the top leaders on our actual performance and keeping things going over that storm period, and everyone else apparently didn't even turn out, so I thought we did quite well there, so compliments to
I said something like that.
I don't like the facts getting in the way of a good story, Councillor Bayford. And I also love a great street party. I think that has got far more meaning, where you get together with all your neighbours. I remember back when we were in the middle of the COVID, and every Tuesday, was it Tuesday or Thursday, we went out and banged the drums, and that was an amazing spirit. And I think if we can get that back and keep it going, then it's great. It's a shame that we have to wait for the Queen to reach a jubilee before we all get together with our neighbours. And as for the golf, yes, did have a good week this week. I won the medal of medals. So although it was a bit blowy, it seemed to help me this week. I'm as opposed to other weeks when I'm not very good. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you. Medals for the leader and accolades for Councillor Bayford. I call upon Councillor Garner to comment on or ask questions in relation to the leader's report.
Thank you. Yes, I also thank the leader for early sight of her report, and I'd like to comment on a few of the items she mentions, make a couple of suggestions and ask one or two questions, strictly related obviously to what she's mentioned in her report. We too are pleased the budget was passed, and also want to thank Chris Blundell, David Saunders and the team again for their hard work. Though, similar to Councillor Everett, we do remain disappointed that the alternative proposals on emergency housing and the lifts were not approved. We all know that sadly the need for emergency housing is likely to increase this year, and in our response to the local plan we have suggested that we should keep the possibility of purchasing units to help address this under review. We're pleased to note the new visitor initiatives, which are complemented by other local initiatives like Ramsgate Town Council's Active Ramsgate programme in helping engage new visitors. The investment of much needed new funds in Ramsgate and Margate is also very welcome, and we look forward to seeing their positive impacts. We're pleased to hear about the Margate Town Deal community pop-up at the Turn on Saturday, and I would encourage as many people as possible to attend and participate. We've called repeatedly for openness and transparency, and hope that this will be the first of many opportunities for residents to ask questions about the projects and help shape what ultimately will impact their community. We have consistently opposed the building of yet another railway station in Thanet since its inception. It has necessitated the destruction of far too many mature trees and its associated wildlife habitat. It's going to result in a dramatic increase in traffic, and the costs have significantly increased beyond the realms of value for money. Yet here we are. One question on this: Does the leader still expect our contribution to be £2 million, or has this now been reevaluated down yet, in line with the other funding being made available? We're pleased that the sapling planting in Northdown Park has been able to go ahead, and regret the miscommunications that place this in doubt at a crucial stage. We are very lucky to have so many dedicated community groups in Thanet who help to improve our environment. We must take this as an opportunity to sort out our processes and provide clear, simple instructions for such groups to help us work with them in a supportive and mutually respectful manner in future for the benefit of all. Related to this, does the leader have an update on the proposed planting in King George VI Memorial Park, which I believe is still to be authorised? Another way we increasingly rely on town and parish councils to support us is in helping to manage litter and waste, and we welcome the announcement of Keep Britain Tidy's Big Spring Clean, and can confirm that many of us and our party members will be out with our litter pickers during the spring clean. We also look forward, related to this, to the report of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee's Coastal Waste Working Party, which we understand has collected valuable evidence from parish and town councils and from the many voluntary groups whose patient and persistent work helps keep Thanet beautiful. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank them all for their efforts. We are grateful to the RISE team and others who worked hard to help rough sleepers during the recent storms. The storms have also caused damage to a number of trees in the area, and I'd also like to thank our Open Spaces team who cleared away much of the debris as sympathetically as possible. And finally, we're also very pleased to note the Independent Monitoring Officer has started work and welcome his initial recommendations. There is much to be done to improve our governance, and it is vital that all of us as members step up to the plate and take responsibility for improving our situation to ensure our governance compares favourably with those of other authorities now and for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Garner. Leader, have you got a response?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Garner, for your comments. We are making every effort, and we do regard it as a top priority to add to our social housing stock. And we will continue to do so for the rest of our term, which I think is 14 months. So we will keep on searching out sites and try and find arrangements that we can do to actually deliver some social housing stock. I must confess, the 2 million, I can remember standing up at a meeting probably about 3 years ago now, it might have been 2-3 years ago, where I actually asked that question. So you might have pinched it off of me, I don't know really. Whether, I think the Kent County Council's contribution, they won some other fund which reduced their contribution, and I think I did ask at the time whether we would be proportionally reduced as well of our 2 million. I must confess that I don't have the answer to that, but I can find out. I will inquire from the financial team and get back to you on that one, because I can't answer it. I also can't answer the planting in the King George VI site. I know it's been discussed with the relevant cabinet members. I can ask them now, or I can ask them and get them to come back to you on that one as well. When we come back, obviously, I'd like to, and there's something I sort of noticed before, that in council, when we get, and even in cabinet, when officers respond or when councillors or cabinet are asked to respond, I think that should go to all of the councillors, not just the asker of the question. So, more than happy to share that across to all members. And I will leave the ONS part to the capable chair of ONS. He is due to give a report, I think, later on the agenda. So hopefully he can include that answer in there. So I believe that's all the questions covered, and thank you for your comments.
Thank you very much, Leader. Agenda item 10, report of the Chair of the Overview and Scrutiny Panel. I call upon Councillor Riven Piper to present the report, and you've an opportunity further.
Thank you, Chair. We've had a couple of meetings recently which have proved very informative. and recently that included a visit from Kent Police to talk to us about the issues of modern slavery and crime in the area. It was very, very interesting. If you get an opportunity to watch the recording, I recommend that you have a look. We do intend to ask him to come and be more specific about certain possible areas of criminality and modern slavery very soon. The report is here for members to consider. We have our list of topics that are being presented by Cabinet members as usual, and also we have topics that I have written to the leader to ask for her Cabinet to come and present to us, to do with the Green Agenda, the comments that we've declared, this emergency. We'd like to see how it's going. We've looked at going paperless. We'd like to see how that's going, how that might have affected our carbon footprint. One of the issues being, have we made a real difference, or have we simply moved the footprint to our own homes because we're having to print it all off on our own computers? But there are some very interesting topics coming up. With regard to your question, Councillor Garner, about the Coastal Waste Scrutiny Review, paragraph 2.4 of the report for this evening says that the Working Party is in the process of drafting the report for presentation to us on the 15th of March. If you are in attendance that evening, you'll hear it firsthand, and then it will go on to Council from there. So it is making good progress. I commend this report to members and would encourage members to contact us if you have subjects that you would like us to consider, or subjects that you would like Cabinet members to bring and talk to us about. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed, Reverend Piper. I have to say that's one of the fullest reports from a chair of overview and scrutiny I've ever heard. Do members have any comments? Do members have any comments? Councillor Piper, yes?
As a member, could I just comment that I haven't yet learned the art of brief reporting that my predecessor, Councillor Bayford, had.
There we are. Well, look, do members have any comments? No comments is obviously very full, Councillor Piper. Agenda item 11, Members' Allowance Scheme for 2022-2023. Would members please refer to supplementary agenda number 2? I move the recommendations set out in the report be adopted. Do I have a seconder? The leader who will second that. Thank you very much indeed. Agenda item 13, exclusion. Oh, where have I gone?
Skipped over whether they agree with it.
Oh, God, yes, sorry. Do members agree? Do members agree? It's agreed. Sorry about that. Already brought forward there. Right. Where are we? Thrown me. Agenda item 12, 2022-23, the Council Tax Resolution. Now, would members please refer to the supplementary agenda number 1, as I've already said. I would advise that in accordance with Council Procedure Rule 17.6, I will call for a recorded vote on the motion or any amendments and substantive motions. I call upon Councillor David Saunders.
Thank you, Chair. When you mentioned the next agenda item, I was almost out of my chair, because we know that we're waiting for this report. This report enables the Thanet District Council to set its element of the council tax for 2022-23. However, that said, in reality, there is no room for variation from the proposal presented in the report. The real business and hard work of the budget setting process was conducted by Council 2 weeks ago when members agreed the budget. Next year's budget is predicated on the £5 increase in council tax that is presented for approval in this report, and we cannot consider any further increase without subjecting any such proposal to a local referendum. In terms of our increase for next year, I draw members' attention to table number 6 at the end of the report. As stated, the £5 increase is the maximum permitted, but even with this restriction, this shows that our increase is, once again, one of the lowest increases of all public bodies, as district councils, as we all know, and I'm sure comments will be made, have not been afforded the same flexibility to consider tax increases as the 3% increase for counties or the £10 increase for the police. As a billing authority, Thanet Council also collects council tax on behalf of a number of other public authorities and bodies. Now that these organisations have set their council tax requirements for the next year, the council can also resolve the total council tax billable for Thanet residents across the district for 2022-23. For members' reference, the preceptors are Kent County Council, Kent Fire and Rescue, the Kent Police and Crime Commissioner, and the parish and town councils, and the total amounts billable are set out, as you will see, at table number 5. Finally, I can provide an update on the £150 payable to eligible residents to support them with their rising energy costs. I can confirm that the government guidance on the scheme was received this Tuesday past, and that TDC councillors and Civica colleagues are working at pace, as usual, because they do an excellent job, as we all know, to ensure that the measures are in place to make these payments as soon as possible. To complement this, Thanet Council also has one of the most generous council tax support schemes in the county, and this additional discount will help protect the most vulnerable in these uncertain times. Members, I move the recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Saunders. Do you have a seconder? The leader, Councillor Ashby. We will now begin a recorded vote conducted by the Deputy Monitoring Officer.
Thank you, Chair. Councillors, if you just say for, against or abstain. Councillor Alban?
For.
Councillor Ara?
For.
Councillor Ashby?
For.
Councillor Austin? For. Councillor Bailey? For. Councillor Bainbridge? For. Councillor Jill Bayford? For. Councillor Robert Bayford? For. Councillor Boyd? For. Councillor Braidwood?
For.
Councillor Coleman Cook?
For.
Councillor Crittenden? For. Councillor Curry? For. Councillor Day? For. Sorry. Councillor Dennis? For. Councillor Dexter? For. Councillor Duckworth? For. Councillor Everett? For. Councillor Farrance? For. Councillor Fellows? For. Councillor Garner? For. Councillor Gregory? For. Councillor Huxley? For. Councillor Keane? For. Councillor Cupp? For. Councillor Lays? For. Councillor Patmore? For. Councillor Ovenden? For. Councillor Parsons? For. Councillor Linda Piper? For. Councillor Stuart Piper? For. Councillor Pugh? For. Councillor Rattigan? For. Councillor Rolfe? For. Councillor Rogers? For. Councillor Rozecki? For. Councillor David Saunders? For. Councillor Maeve Saunders? Councillor Savage? For. Councillor Scobie? For. Councillor Scott? For. Councillor Shonk? For. Councillor Shrub? For. Councillor Smith? For. Excuse me. Councillor Tomlinson? For. Councillor Towning? For. Councillor Wallin? For. Councillor Whitehead? For. Councillor Wing? For. Councillor Wright? For. Councillor Yates? For. Thank you. It's carried.
Thank you very much indeed, members. I believe that was unanimous. Agenda item 13, exclusion of public and press. I move that the public and press be excluded from the meeting for an agenda item 14 as it contains exempt information as defined in paragraph 1 of part 1 of the Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972 as amended. Can I have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Bayford. Do members agree?
Very